everybody, my name is Helen, and today I am going to tell you about 5 anime that I think you should give a chance if you are a writer. Let's just jump right into this because these are all favorites of mine and I want more people to watch them. So 3 of the things I'm going to recommend to you today are going to be series and 2 of them are going to be movies. All of them are fantastic. Give them a chance, please. So the first show that I'm going to recommend is Fruits Basket. This anime follows a family known as the Somas, and they have been cursed by the Zodiac, so each of the main members of the family are the basically personification of an animal of the Zodiac, and if they are hugged by a member of the opposite sex, or if their bodies are under extreme stress, then they will turn into that animal. The 2 that we spend the most time with are Yuki and Kyo. Yuki is the rat, and Kyo is the cat. And the cat is not actually part of the Zodiac, but he's trying very, very hard to become an official part of the Soma family, and in doing so become part of the Zodiac. And we meet this family through the eyes of a young girl named Toru, who has just lost her mother, who was her closest friend, the most important person in her life, and she is dealing with that and befriends this family. The reason that I think writers should watch this show is that it covers such a wide spectrum of relationships. You get an incredible mother-daughter relationship that's told through stories that Toru tells us. We get a very tumultuous familial relationship with Yuki and the rest of the Somas, not to mention Kyo and the rest of the Somas. We get beautiful friendships with Toru and her friends Uo and Hana, as well as her friendships with Yuki and Kyo and all of the other Somas, because as she meets them, she does everything in her power to befriend them. And we do get some great romance in this as well. I realize that the premise does sound a little bit outlandish, and I completely understand that. However, that premise takes such a back seat to the relationships in this story, and it is mildly dated in terms of the story, not in terms of the animation, because, like, no shit, this is dated. But Toru is very much a homebody. She's the equivalent of a housewife, and the boys tend to protect her, but it's done in a very sweet way. Can't recommend it enough. Give, like, the first 3 episodes a shot. If you have a favorite Soma, let me know. Mine's Hatsuharu. The next show that I'm going to recommend for writers is Sweetness and Lightning. And this is a very, very sweet slice of life anime, which means that it just follows people living their daily lives, and it follows a man who is a newly single father. His wife has died, and he has a 4-year-old daughter, and he doesn't know how to cook. He's having a really hard time figuring out how to make good food so that his daughter will eat it because he's worried about her. They have a very good relationship. He's trying his best to be a good dad. And he finds this restaurant that's owned by a very good chef, but she's away, and her daughter also doesn't really know how to cook but has her recipes. So the 3 of them all start working together to learn how to cook, and it just follows them as their friendships grow and their relationships change. So much of this is following the father, but we see so much of his daughter. Again, this is a story that I bring up more because of the relationships than because of the plot, because there isn't a whole lot of plot. But it's a very short show. It's only 13 episodes. They're 20 minutes apiece. And the way that the 4-year-old is done is incredible. I've never seen a small child written so well. There is a clip that's become kind of famous from Crunchyroll of her walking down the street and imagining that she's trying to stay away from some sharks. It's very cute. It's the clip that made me want to watch this show, and it's very good. Again, great showing of interpersonal relationships and how people grow and change based on just like one small thing, and just also how this family is dealing with the loss of their mother. And I feel like it was explored very well considering it's a 13-episode series. Again, if you're looking for inspiration for a very, very healthy and good family dynamic, I recommend Sweetness and Lightning. The next show that I'm going to recommend is Violet Evergarden, and this is a Netflix original. in terms of the animation. It was a light novel beforehand, I believe. And this is the story of a 14-year-old girl named Violet, and she was trained to be a military tool, and now the war is over, and she doesn't really remember what happened. She lost her arms, so she has these automaton kind of arms. She is taken in by one of her commanding officers. He is starting a postal service, and in the world that this takes place in, it's kind of historical fiction, kind of fantasy-esque. Most of the people in the world don't know how to read and write, and she does know how to read, and she does know how to write. She learns how to use a typewriter. The problem is that she doesn't know how to convey emotion. So the story follows her learning how to process people's emotions and correctly write them down. I'm sure you can see how this would be helpful for a writer. And it does also deal with like some very interesting topics throughout. Like several of the episodes made me cry. It's very heartwarming, it's very heartfelt. Violet is such a good character considering how blank she is so much of the time. But yeah, it's such an interesting way to think about emotion and to see her go from basically giving military reports, because that's what her letters start off sounding like, to being able to take a single sentence from someone and understand what they are trying to say and put that on paper. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. I hope we get a season 2. I feel like, for writers in particular, this look at how to write emotion is interesting and also very helpful, because it kind of takes that idea of show don't tell, because they tell her explicitly how they're feeling, and she turns that into beautiful phrases and words and still conveys that emotion, but in such a pure way. And finally, we're gonna get into the movies. So both of these are Studio Ghibli movies. They are both from Hayao Miyazaki. We love him in this house. The first one I'm going to recommend is called Whispers of the Heart. This follows a girl named Shisuzu. Why am I blanking? This is one of my favorite movies. Shizuku. Wow! This follows a girl named Shizuku who is a bookworm, and she has been reading very diligently over the summer, and she notices a name on all of the library cards, which is Seiji Yamasawa, who's this guy. The two of them meet, they start kind of hanging out and falling in love, and he decides that he is going to take a year off of school and go to Italy. And while he's in Italy, he wants to learn how to make violins, which is his life passion. So she decides that at the same time, she's going to take a year off school and she's going to try to write, which has always been her passion. And it's her writing her first ever manuscript, dealing with that. So, again, very obvious why I think writers should watch this. It perfectly captures, like, the awe and the inspiration of writing your first manuscript and the utter terror when you realize that it's a piece of shit. But it's such a good story. It's, again, heartwarming, heartfelt. She has a great relationship with Seiji's grandfather, and he's super supportive of her trying to write, and he's consistently there for her. Her and Seiji's relationship is great because it's kind of a hate to love. Watch it. And finally, the last movie that I'm going to recommend is one that I think might be the most important for writers, and actually I think it's the most important for, like, any creatives who might be watching this, and that is Kikis Delivery Service. So again, Hayao Miyazaki, we follow a young girl who is a witch, and she is going out on her own to discover what her specialty is. She begins her own delivery service through her broom and flying things to people, and she begins to struggle with flying. So the story kind of follows her whole adventure and learning to deal with that, and it's about burnout. And she learns some very important lessons about burnout and self-care. Sometimes you need to take a break. There is actually an artist in this story, a painter, who is kind of helping her learn this because she's been in slumps before. She's had a hard time painting where everything felt derivative. She's learned how to deal with it herself, and so she helps Kiki through it. It's so good. It's such an important message because, yes, like, writing every day is great, or working on your writing every day is great, but if you can't do it, that's okay, because you need to take care of you before you can take care of your writing. I feel like that's a very important story, and that it will be very helpful to all writers or painters or any creative person, really. Those are the 5 anime that I am going to recommend to writers today. Have you watched any of these shows? You should let me know in the comments down below. I do respond to every comment on my videos, and I absolutely love hearing from you, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye-bye!